This episode of the Crimson Post is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including Sherry Harper, who is currently supporting at the $10 level. If you would like to make more videos like this possible, please consider joining. The link is in the description.
Salutations and welcome to the Crimson Post. I'm your host, the Crimson Gentleman, and today we're talking about Dr. Sleep. Before we talk about our main topic, Dr. Sleep, we of course have to address the things from the previous episode, namely our Crimson Conundrum. Now, last week's Crimson Conundrum was, what has a heart but no other organs? Okay, so this is a riddle that might seem a little misleading after you hear the answer. And, I can definitely see having some problems with it. For sure, since it says has a heart, not has some hearts. But trying to obscure the answer is, of course, the purpose of a riddle in the first place. So take it as you will. But the answer to the riddle is a deck of cards, which of course has the suit of hearts. Now, it could be argued that it actually has 13 hearts, ace through king. But there you go. That's the riddle. Stay tuned for this week's riddle at the end of this episode. All right, so now we've got to talk about the movie that we saw this week, Dr. Sleep. And we'll start with the statistics about the movie. So, it was released November 8th of 2019. In its opening weekend, it made $14 million. It has since gone on to make $25 million domestically and $53 million throughout the world. So it didn't do quite as good as it. The critic score for it is 77%, somewhere around there, whereas the audience score is 89%. Actually, this is closer than a lot of our scores have been recently. A lot of them have had a higher discrepancy than that at this point. That's a discrepancy of only 12 points, so there's a bit of agreement there, a bit more of a consensus. But as usual, audience so far seems to like the movie more than critics. So, what did I think of the movie? I think it was an excellent movie. I really enjoyed it. It was a very good follow-up to The Shining. I think they did a good job of combining things from the original movie and the original book, as there are quite a few differences between the book and the movie. There was the remake of The Shining that came out that was supposed to be truer to the book, but it never did as well as the original movie with Jack Nicholson. It had quite a few interesting callbacks and references to the movie, and I thought it was really interesting all around. There were quite a few differences in the movie compared to the book Dr. Sleep, some of which might have upset some people, some of which might have been just okay to do for a movie. It's definitely good, definitely worth seeing. If you like the original movie The Shining, it would definitely be good for you to watch this, I think. If you haven't seen The Shining, definitely watch that before watching this. But I almost feel like if you don't have that feeling of iconicness, it's not going to feel the same to watch both of them back to back. If you didn't grow up having seen The Shining, or it hasn't been a long time for you since you've seen The Shining, I feel like a lot about what is appealing about this movie is that is the gap between The Shining and Dr. Sleep, even in your own head. the feeling of it having been a long time since you've been here and seen these people, I think really plays to the strength of the movie. I think watching The Shining right before seeing Doctor Sleep would take away something from the entire experience. But if you haven't seen The Shining before, that's not really something you can help. You know, from here on out for the rest of history, Doctor Sleep is a thing that exists. When I saw The Shining for the first time, that was it. That was the whole story. There was never going to be anything else. There wasn't even a thought that there might be anything else. It was just The Shining, and that was it. And now, I remember when Doctor Sleep came out in 2013, I think it was, and just the idea that there's more to this story now was definitely, and it was an interesting experience just to all of a sudden there's more than just everything that happened at the Overlook Hotel. And I have to say, it wasn't what I was expecting in a lot of good ways because, well, again, I don't know, I don't want to do spoilers too much at first, but it was definitely not what I expected it to be. But it was excellent. I really love a lot of the things it adds to the Stephen King sort of universe. For many of you who may not know, for a long time, the stories that Stephen King writes have been connected sort of implicitly at first. They were things that you had to catch or notice. It wasn't an explicit thing for a very long time. Not until some of the books of the Dark Tower, and not even in the first book of the Dark Tower is it just explicitly stated kind of what's going on and how the universe works. But if you have read a number of his novels, you will notice things connecting and being similar. And eventually you see that pretty much all of them are fully connected. And a lot of those connections, interestingly, are in short stories that he's written rather than the larger main books that everyone knows. So it's almost like he kept it for a very long time as sort of a secret thing that only his biggest fans would really know about. But this adds quite a few things that are very interesting to it. As I mentioned before in my episode on It, Chapter 2, the Losers Club, they all possessed the Shining as well. And this sort of shows Dr. Sleep really did explain a lot about the differences between levels of the Shining, how powerful it can be, how a lot of people might have it and not even realize it. Maybe they never know. And maybe it's just a little bit. It affects their lives just a little bit, not a whole bunch. And it was definitely very interesting. I was very happy to see it. So definitely go and see it. I would rate it very highly. Enjoyed it a lot. So if you haven't seen it, definitely go and see it, especially if you have seen The Shining before. And, you know, it's always possible, especially if you read the book, that you won't like the movie because of differences. They always bother me too. I've gotten a lot better lately as not letting those types of things bother me as much as they used to. It used to be I couldn't even watch movies of books that I'd read. And if there was a movie coming out based on a book that I hadn't read the book, I wouldn't even bother reading it because I knew that reading the book was only going to make me dislike the movie. So I'd see the movie first and then go and read the book and get the fuller story afterward. So there you go. Now we're going to be going into spoilers, kind of go through a breakdown of the story and what was going on and some interesting stuff. So when we kind of start out the movie, we're back to Danny Torrance when he was younger. He's now seeing ghosts from the Overlook Hotel. They're coming after him because they want his shine. They're hungry for it. And so they followed him sort of one after another over the course of years. His friendly chef man from the, he ran the kitchen and the place at the Overlook Hotel, is with him now, again, talking to him. So Hallorann's there, and he's also followed Danny, but he's a good spirit. And so he talks to him a little bit over throughout his life. He teaches him how to lock up these ghosts in his mind. And this immediately is fairly clear that this is going to be a fairly large plot point, especially later in the movie when they mention it a second time. And like, okay, so now I definitely know what's going to go on here. They did a very good job, I thought. I was surprised at how good a job they did recasting the younger versions of the characters, of Danny and his parents. And so it was actually a lot more believable, and they did a good job of not really focusing on them too much, kind of having them be off-center and not drawing too much attention to the characters and the way they looked, instead focusing on just enough to get your brain to fill in the gaps and make them look like they did again. Ewan McGregor is fantastic in the role as Danny Torrance when he's older. Ewan McGregor is one of my favorite actors. He's extremely charming and really lent a kindness to the role that I really enjoyed watching. It was interesting seeing him not wield a lightsaber. It always is interesting when seeing him not wield a lightsaber. The movie also reveals a group of semi-immortal figures that are known as the True Knot, which is said in the books. I don't remember hearing it in the movie, though it's possible I missed it, and they only said it once or twice. They're led by Rose the Hat, and they find children who have the Shining and then feast on them. Feast on what they call steam, which basically seems to be the souls of living beings. It's interesting that they either have to or prefer to feed on children who shine, considering when Danny witnesses some folks die at the hospital that he starts working at, the hospice care that he starts working at, the same steam comes out of their mouth as the kids who shine. But it also seems like it's possible that there's less of it, and maybe that's what it is just in higher concentration of the same stuff, and perhaps that is what causes the shine. So we've got Rose the Hat. There's also Crow, Grandpa Flick. And another interesting thing is that in the book, because one of the kids that they feed on, because they're so ancient, he's afflicted with measles, and they catch that, and because they're so ancient, they don't have the same immunities to it that people nowadays do. Even those who get it aren't nearly as badly affected by it as they would have used to have been. And that's actually what Grandpa Flick dies from in the books. He dies of measles, not just old age. And there are quite a few other things they change about them and their stories and how they come through, but they work well enough and they service the movie. Also, some things change toward the end with who dies when and how. At the Overlook Hotel, it's not just Rose the Hat who's there. And also, in the books, she doesn't get eaten by a horde of monsters from Danny's brain. She gets pushed off balcony. The movie is just filled with bad parents. Just all over, kids are dying because their parents are terrible and just let them wander off. I mean, some of them I kind of understand. The one girl at the very beginning in the trailer park, I kind of understand her because, it's earlier in time. Parents were more relaxed with their children and it fits. But then the baseball boy, it's in 2019 at this point. and he's just walking home alone on the side of a highway, a 2-lane highway that is probably 45 to 60 miles an hour. And his parents have just let him walk home. And what was he even doing? He is like the star of the games. He never misses. Why is he not being celebrated? Why is he just on a walk home by himself without anybody? Why did no one go there to watch him? Is it just, oh, we don't need to watch him because he just always does so good? It's just boring now. I mean, I guess I could kind of see that happening, but like you just let him walk home? I don't get it. I don't get it. So all kinds of children dying because of terrible parents. Movie's just filled with terrible parents. But then it's really sad when Abra's father dies. I found that very sad because, he actually believed her and wanted to help and let them do this thing that was their plan instead of just getting in their way like parents and things almost always do, making it harder, making it worse. And he ended up unfortunately getting stabbed. But it was an epic moment when Danny, when he was trying to find Abra, he finally found her. He unlocked a bit more of his power that he'd always had, but he just hidden away ever since, even the first movie. And he steers the van into the tree and he goes ejecting out the windshield. That was an epic moment. I really enjoyed that. Super satisfying. Also, it was an excellent scene when there was the shootout. I really enjoyed that. I was surprised at how well it was done considering the type of movie it was. I mean, it's the only shootout in the movie, the only time guns are really fired at all, and it was just done so well. So much better than most movies that the entire point of the movie is having a bunch of shootouts, and they are not done nearly as good as this one was. It was done fantastically, it was shot well, and it just thematically was fantastic. It was super sad and emotional when she caused Doug, I think, killed himself. Sad that she couldn't be brought back just to be killed again for that. And there were a lot of deaths in the movie that were really impactful. It was also very satisfying to see a movie where regular people, find and dig up a dead body and then actually freak out from it and react the way people would in such a scenario. It seems like so many people are so used to seeing dead bodies in movies. It seems like they're like, a bit, but they were puking and like almost puking, like trying not to puke and stuff. And it's just, I appreciated that. Which a lot of that probably comes from the writing detail than just the movie itself. So, the boxes in his brain are brought up about halfway through the movie, and so I'm like, okay, so he's going to have to use these against them. I didn't expect I thought he was going to use it against all of them. I didn't think that he was going to have a shootout with most of them, basically killing all of them but 2, and then taking care of Crow with the van, and then Rose finally with all the monsters. I thought he'd have to get all of them. I thought that might be why he'd have to, but it ended up being that Rose became super powerful from drinking in all the mist that they had left over, which she didn't really use most of it, Also, what was going to happen if she got trapped in the box? I don't understand if just her powers or her mind would be locked away in his mind for some reason. I don't know if her body would have disappeared. I'm not sure what was supposed to happen, or the extent to which his power works on physical beings instead of simply ghosts. Yeah. So it was an excellent movie. It was very, very impactful the way when he had, he got hit in the leg, in the same leg, and so he was limping around with the axe as the hotel sort of took his mind over temporarily. And then the way he dies in the boiler room, stopping the hotel from saving itself, and sees his mother there. I feel like that might have been more symbolic than her spirit was actually there. Maybe her spirit has been following him around since she died. I'm not sure. In the movie, it's not super clear. But then he's back and he actually gets to talk to Abra and show that his spirit has, it's not stuck there or trapped or anything. He's the same thing to her that Halloran was to him, and he goes on and he gets to be whatever it is that they are when they're not there talking to other people with The Shining. So it was an excellent movie, very satisfying, super fun to watch, super enjoyable. I'm a welcome addition to the storyline of The Shining, and an interesting wrap up that I didn't really know I needed in a way. It felt like the story was complete before, but now it seems like this was missing and I just never had realized it. So it was very enjoyable. So that's what I have to say about that. So now we've got our Crimson Conundrum for this week that you'll think about until the next episode. And this is what the riddle is. So here you go. Give this a think, guys. Okay. The dwarves in Snow White sit down to a bite. How fast can you guess what she serves them next? Alrighty, so with that, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, please let me know by leaving a like or comment down below. Please leave some comments about what you thought of this movie and some comments about what you want me to talk about next and anything you'd like to say for me to potentially review on next week's episode. So with that, I'll see you all in the next episode. Farewell.